involved to promote democracy, right? Because I know we released, I think it was last night, we decided to send weapons to the troops in Syria. As an American, we aren't very much interested in any more armed conflicts in the Middle East. We're kind of sick and fed up with that. And that being said, we were pretty eager to turn a blind eye to all of the atrocities happening there. Not we, us, but America, so that we could get oil. So supporting democracy there isn't really going to help us keep getting oil because we can get it anyway. Oh wait, it was supposed to be a question, wasn't it? Yes. I gotta think about it. Pop a question mark at the end of that. Who's the next speaker?
Next speakers?
Oh, we have music time.
Okay, thank you.
No, I start putting so
Ladies and gentlemen, my dear fellows and worthy opponents, do you really believe that political systems of Arab nations, which have been formed and shaped for ages, can be changed so easily? To begin with, they have been always linked to Islam, the religion whose holy words of wisdom are very often misunderstood and consequences are disastrous. Are you completely sure that you, your parents, your children, your family will not be put at risk of danger? Danger of losing everything and saying farewell to good times that they used to live in. Egypt, a country of great legacy, but also a cultural capital of the Middle East and North Africa. Country which have always been an example to the Arab nations. What happened there? Horrible facts indeed, my dear audience. After Hosni Mubarak's abdication, the worst of nightmares followed. People of Egypt have been given a chance to democratically elect their new president, and so they did. They did indeed. Mohamed Morsi was the man. He won the elections with support of 51.73%. Sounds fair, doesn't it? It would have, brothers and sisters. It would have if not for the fact that only 60% of Egyptians participated in the elections. Do you know what fraction of the population does it make? Do you? Don't worry, I've taken care of the calculations. 32.16%, my friends. 32%! How could they expect Morsi to be a good head of nation if they couldn't even show up at the elections? If the Egyptians would have felt so desperate about current political situation, more of them would have participated. In comparison with the United States 2012 election, 74.12% of Americans participated. Given the fact that America definitely does not need a change of system, make this look ridiculously. This sort of behavior made me think that these societies are not ready for the democracy. Did you know what happened just a few days ago? On 22nd of July, people of Egypt descended on the streets of Cairo. Followers of the Muslim Brotherhood marched to the US Embassy in act of protest. Crowd consisted mostly of women who were utterly moved by actions of the military. What these men committed was murder of 3 innocent women. The resentful masses accused the army of using violence against the Islamists, consequently renewing their demand for restoration of ousted President Mohamed Morsi. The protesters also denounced the overthrow of the president by the military. Doesn't it prove something, my honorable people? If I may say so, people of Egypt can speak for themselves. Firstly, Mubarak was overthrown and Morsi was put in his place. What happened next was a coup, and military took over the role. They exploited the people and the results were lethal. Just imagine what happens if other Arab countries follow. People actually spoke for themselves, and at least most of them have made a decision. The decision that all of you shall keep in mind and eventually make yourselves. Thank you.
If we're talking about arbitrary deaths in protests and riots and conflicts, how do you explain U.S. forces killing innocent women and children? Are you condemning the U.S. or you're condemning these Arab nations?
What does the U.S. have to do with the front?
The relevance is in that you are saying it is absolutely absurd that 3 innocent people could be killed in a protest, where there are hundreds of innocent people that have been killed by other countries invading basically innocent countries. And yet you're not condemning them, but you can condemn the Middle East.
Hitler invaded Russia.
Okay, just points of information or points of clarification?
Okay, may I answer?
Points of information or?
In her
Was
question.
was it a question?
Yeah. How do you
Okay.
explain?
So,
Yeah.
Andrew said that the women were protesting, then they were asking Mursi back. You didn't hear that, obviously. And as I said before, in the democracy, you cannot exclude women. You have to include everyone, every single person. They were asking Mursi back. You cannot exclude someone from democracy.
First of all, the entire point of a democracy is the vote of the majority. So even if a small group is included, if the majority votes for something, then that is the way it will go. Also, you say that a very small percent of people actually voted, but with how many people are protesting now, isn't it clear that these people want to participate now? They've learned from their mistakes and they are willing to participate. So do you think that these people will just suddenly go back to standing by after all the effort they put in?
Just to add to her point, when she says so many people, that's 17 million people who actually protested, the largest in the world has ever seen. So I think that's evidence enough that they want to change. If 17 million people, that's almost a whole country, citizens of the country, can come and demonstrate. So I don't know what you're saying.
What I just told you actually had happened a few days ago, and a lot of people were asking for Mursi back.
How many numbers was a lot of people?
More than 17 million.
More than 17 million.
And what is your source on that?
Our source is Greek newspaper. It's the most well-known Greek newspaper.
So the Greek newspaper said 17 million people were asking for Morsi back. Is that what you just stated?
Correct.
Let me see the news article.
Okay, we've got it. Fine.
We get the next.
On the opposition.
Okay, quiet please.
Good evening. It is perfectly clear to me, and hopefully to you as well, that the Arab revolutions are beneficial to the world. Specifically, it will and is leading to reduction in religious extremism. The current situation in Egypt is a blatant example of this. Before Mohammed Morsi was ousted from the government, he ruled as president under the doctrines of the Muslim Brotherhood, which is an Islamic extremist group that manifests itself in a political party and rules based on exaggerated Islamist principles. The revolutions have shown that this is no longer what the people want. 22 million Egyptians signed rebellion petitions in the last 3 months alone. 17 million people also marched against the idea of an Islamist government during the week of July 4th alone. Only in 1 week. Millions of self-proclaimed Muslims are refusing to be threatened or patronized by their Islamist government. They do not want to be ruled by extreme views. They want to be ruled secularly and maintain their religion independent of the state. An Egyptian protester stated it extremely well earlier this month when he said, "They promised that Islam is the solution, but under Muslim Brotherhood rule, we saw neither Islam nor a solution." Obviously, there is a reduction in religious extremism due to the Arab Springs. The people are rejecting religious rule. If the opposition cannot see that, it just emphasizes how they are more concerned with being hawks and attacking and oppressing vulnerable countries than they are with fostering growing economies and human rights. This can all be supported with numbers. In a study conducted between the years of 2000 and 2012 in the countries of Egypt, Iraq, Lebanon, and Saudi Arabia, 59% of Egyptians and 51% of Lebanese people claimed the main purpose of the Arab Spring was freedom and democracy. Only 9% of either country claimed the revolutions had anything to do with maintaining religious political views. The people are using the revolutions for freedom and for democracy, two things that they did not have under Islamist rule. In Egypt, the public support a movement toward an independent secular government and non-religious law over Sharia law, which is based on the Islam religion. Support for secularism grew from 31% in 2001 to 64% in 2011. The people wish to move away from a religious government, which is nearly always an extremist government. This can be nothing but beneficial to the world. In addition, support for Sharia law in Saudi Arabia fell from 69% to 31% between the years of 2003 and 2011, which is another staggering trend. These numbers explicitly show that religious extremism is reducing rapidly in countries that lie in the Middle East. A reduction in any kind of extremism is positive for the world. But a reduction in religious extremism is particularly substantial. Extremism is linked mainly through the government and outside opposition groups. And the people are calling an end to their rule and an end to religious extremism in our world. There is no way, ladies and gentlemen, that a reduction in religious extremism could possibly be a negative thing for our world. As British Prime Minister David Cameron said when expressing his support for the Arab revolutions, "We will help you in all the ways we can, because the alternative to a successful democracy is more of the poisonous extremism that has already done so much damage in our world." Thank you.
Okay, so you talked a lot about Egypt and the effects of the Arab Revolution there, but I was just curious if you had done your research on what happened in religious extremism and other movements in the other three countries we agreed to discuss, which were Libya, Yemen, and Tunisia, because I believe the same patterns don't apply there.
Question?
Yeah, I was just curious, like,
Curious.
what was going on?
I have done my research, actually. And while religion may still be present in their governments, religion in governments is not necessarily always a bad thing. If you take the British government, for example, there is a Church of England, and the head of which is the Queen, the monarch, which runs the country. So religion in governments is not necessarily a bad thing. I'm simply stating that in the country of Egypt specifically, they're absolutely rejecting any kind of religion in the government, which is a step in the right direction that the other countries are actually beginning to start to follow.
Yeah.
Well, I have one then. You said revolution is going to get rid of all of the radical Islamism that's happening in there, but didn't the revolutions in the first place in Egypt allow Mohammed Morsi to step into power as a radical Islamist?
I don't believe I ever stated that they're going to remove all the extremism. It's simply a step in the right direction. And while Morsi was a member of the extremist party, they had stated that he ran on the campaign that Islam is the solution. That was their slogan. And they felt that a non-radical view of Islam was what they need in the country. However, after he came into power, he became an extremist. And therefore, it's not what the people had wanted in the first place anyway.
Okay. Right.
Before you want to do music.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. In the MENA region, Middle East and North Africa, stable social situation and confidence are not in charge. Political instabilities. The Arab Spring has caused many social and economic problems. Let me make that a bit more clear. Due to the Arab Spring, there are no investments. Who would invest on an unstable economy? There's high unemployment, no economic growth, and so recession, and so social discontent. If the Arab Spring spreads to the Gulf countries, oil extraction and production will freeze, and a huge part of the world economy will also freeze. So, a decrease of supply, there's going to be a decrease of supply of oil, and that implicates an increase of demand. That means higher prices. The whole economic world is going to work like an auction house. The one with the highest bid wins. In 1973, there was an oil crisis. The price of oil went 300% up. It was a devastating crisis for everyone. Do we want another crisis? Do we? I don't think so, ladies and gentlemen. The IMF, the International Monetary Fund, is going to lend to Morocco $6 billion and Jordan $2 billion. Sounds good, doesn't it? But all I hear is debt, 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 and debt. How are these countries going to pay back? Without a plan, no political stability, no a stable government. How are these countries going to get back on their feet? It's going to take too long to recover and start developing. Look at Greece. It's going to need at least 20 more years to fully recover. And most of the population of Greece started to contest politicians and that they're making the wrong decisions and they're trying to find another way of outburst. 10.6% of Greece's population voted in the election. The polls show that 10.6% are going to vote for a fascist party called Golden Dawn. 10.6%. That's 700,000 people, 21st century in Greece. 2013 are going to vote for a fascist party. Is the population of these countries ready for something like that? I don't think so. They'll need something or someone to rely on. Germany, after the First World War, was in a really bad economic situation. There were huge debt, and debt blocked development and boosted unemployment. Recession and unemployment will lead to social upheavals and political instability. For example, the rise of Hitler's power. Who won a dictatorship in our times where oil and energy are vital, especially in 20 years for sure? Oil and energy are going to be even more vital than now. Reject the Arab Spring. Reject bad economy. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Aware of the emerging oil markets of Brazil and other South American countries that will provide an enormous market in the next several years for oil, making the issue of oil prices rising not nearly as relevant as you claim it to be?
Could you repeat the question, please? Was the question or a question?
Are you
I
aware
have to say, yeah.
of these emerging economies?
Yeah. But the question, hold on. When those economies take over, it means that once these countries get out of revolution, Egypt, Yemen, Tunisia, they aren't going to have as much of an oil exporting business. So they're going to have less economy in the long run. So that's what you're saying.
I'd just like to add that, I don't know if you know, but oil resources will be finished in about 40 or 50 years. And all the scientists are working on thermonuclear fusions, and the closest projects are on about 2023. So I don't know if these countries could recover in this period of time.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but after those useless facts and figures, you basically stated that oil stability in the Middle East was bad, right?
Sorry?
You basically stated that Middle East oil stability was bad, was going bad, or was going to be bad, because you said that in 1973, kind of thing.
I'm saying that since...
Well, anyway, there are new developments for oil stability, and I stated in my speech that the developments aim to prevent threats to oil stability and contain a range of 21st century politics, economics, and strategies to prevent it.
Could you please tell me how they're going to develop? Like, look at Greece. We're no, seriously. We're a democracy. Like, the countries are not a democracy, and we're struggling to get out of recession and go to development, and then a healthy economy. It's gonna take. There is no specific plan. What are we going? Okay, let's say democracy is established. What are they going to do? Elect a government that's never been on they've never got like its power. Well, they don't know what's going to happen after that. It's something really fluid, something really thin. something that it would easily break. And I can't see a way of developing these countries.
I'm sorry.
Right, can we just
You
restrict
do
it
know
to-
that,
Yes.
you do know
I
that
think
this
we're restricted
debate
to
is,
two. We're restricted to two.
you do know that the debate is about the Middle East and not Greece, right?
1-2.
Sorry. I said just look at Greece as an example.
You keep saying look at Greece, but this is
As an example.
Right, okay, that's not the point. Can we, any other points of information or clarification?
We're done. Somebody else did.
Right, okay, can we get the next speaker?
Let's do one of the other.
The Arab revolutions are benefiting the world through the impact they have on reducing global terrorism. I would like to begin by conceding that it is difficult to draw concrete links between declining world terrorism and the Arab revolutions, mainly because of the vague nature of the term terrorism. We also recognize that due to the instability of governments during the revolutions, terrorist groups were able to gain prominence and power in some regions. Think about it though. What else would you expect from radical religious political groups wishing to gain control of the countries in question? They're obviously going to make advances and spread their power. The real issue, therefore, lies in the mass public opinion and how these groups are affecting the revolutions and the new governments emerging from them. I spoke earlier of how the people of the revolutions are rejecting extremism by overthrowing religious and radical leaders for what they truly want: freedom and democracy, which 59% of Egyptians, I will remind you, claim to be the sole purpose of the revolutions in the first place. Hence, I will focus on the changing doctrine of the supposed terrorist groups. The evidence of a reduction in terrorism is apparent not in the number of supposed terrorist attacks, which are nearly impossible to objectively define, but in the changing doctrines of the Islamic extremist groups that are behind these actions, and many of them are becoming much less radical as a result of the Arab revolutions. Take Al-Qaeda, for example. Currently, the organization is pushing toward the Salafi doctrine. This states that Muslim society needs to return to its strict roots, or its base values, beliefs, and practices, because it is veered off course as it has come into contact with modern society. This is a shift from their previous assertion of only the jihadist doctrine. Translated from the Quran, jihad is a struggle in the way of Allah. However, in Al-Qaeda applications, it is nearly always meant to be holy war, and therefore violence and direct terrorist attacks that cause countless deaths and injuries ensue. The shift to Salafi from jihad to Salafi is therefore not a complete solution, but most definitely a step in the right direction in terms of reducing violent religious extremism, even if the terrorist groups still have a significant hold on some of the revolutionary countries in question. I would also like to point out that Al-Qaeda is the main terrorist organization in the Middle East. Hezbollah, Boko Haram, and many other smaller terrorist organizations follow Al-Qaeda's lead. Attempting to return to peaceful roots is evidently extremely significant for the entire Middle East, as the actions of Al-Qaeda will and do affect Hezbollah in Syria and Boko Haram in Africa. If you don't see this as an improvement, you're facing a mistaken logic known as the perfectionist fallacy. There will always be terrorists and extremists in the world. That does not mean that it is not worth accepting and building off of. The famous philosopher Edmund Burke once said, "All that is necessary for triumph of evil is that good men do nothing." If the people don't try to establish democracy, then the evil of the dictators and extremists automatically win. There will always be terrorism in the world. However, given the obvious expansion of the groups, the shift in ideology is extremely significant in mitigating the effects. We have to try. The Arab revolutions, therefore, are and will continue to be beneficial to the world.
Do you really believe that these countries and people are ready for a democracy? Do you really believe that the people were... Just a moment. Do you really believe that people protesting now will change from one day to another? Like their habits, change their habits? No one that's protesting right now was born with the idea that one day we'll live in democracy and everyone's going to be equal. That's democracy, right? Everyone's equal, right? Like, excuse me. Do you really believe that everyone that's asking for a democracy, because indeed, democracy is better, when living in a democracy is better than living under some a dictator or something like that. But do you really believe that everybody, that 17 million, everybody, all 17 million, believe that women should have the same privileges as men?
I'd like to start off by addressing your first point in that they will not change their views overnight. And the actual announcement to change the Sloppy Doctrine was announced in 2011. So it has been a slow change, but it has been an effective change as well. It's not happening overnight, and it's therefore much more rational to accept it. And as far as your second point, there's always going to be a percentage of the population that does not agree with human rights or the ideas of the mass majority. However, if 22 million people are asking for the extremists who do not believe in human rights to be taken out of the government through petitions, and 17 million people are marching in a single week, I think that shows that the majority of the population do believe in what I have spoken about, that the Arab revolutions will be beneficial to the world.
Oh, really? Okay.
Thank you, everyone. I hope you guys aren't very bored yet. So, when most people hear the word revolution, they assume it's good. They picture good triumphing over evil, people signing Bill of Rights, the everlasting quest for freedom finally fulfilled. Well, we wish that was true here. But these revolutions are original and different. They are wild and unpredictable. There is a high level of uncertainty for what will happen that we cannot anticipate. So, as we speculate, please keep this in mind. Let's assume for a moment the revolutions are successful. What these countries are fighting for is clear, and that is they want equal footing with Western powers. They want the rights that we were born with and we take for granted every single day, and they want them soon. The question is this: how can a country with an inflation rate of about 10% a year catch up? In a place where the GDP per capita stands at about 1,500 pounds, it seems many of these countries will be perpetually behind. These countries are very, very poor. I think we've made that clear. They don't have the infrastructure to set up a Western-style government. That's important to keep in mind. Another thing that we need to talk about is foreign involvement. Global powers are already racing to take advantage of these new markets. The US has already cut a tentative deal with Egypt, dictating terms of trade. The question is this: are we looking for profit or to help? You may not have had American history, but I have, and I'm going to probably say it's profit. Already, foreign involvement has led to problems. For example, in Syria, the US and Russia have decided to arm opposing sides of the revolution. This seems like a recipe for disaster. The conflict is far from over in these countries, and more blood will be shed. Keep in mind that last time the US supported rebel groups, we armed Osama bin Laden. These foreign powers are looking to support their own profit and the policies they agree with. The opposition continually refers to a step in the right direction. What is it our place to judge what the right direction is? What is it our place to tell them that religion has no place in government? The word beneficial is very subjective, and we've interpreted it means what is best for the people. Also, please keep this in mind. For a long time, foreign powers have set a precedence of supporting dictators and other governments that they can control and that will work with them. As Julia discussed, this was evident in the support of Mubarak. Long after public support had completely died, the US and other Western powers kept him in power. This is also true in the Iranian Revolution, where the US and UK supported the Shah, even though people hated him, until the people literally had to march into the palace and throw him out. Two other points that didn't fit anywhere, so we'll just mention them. Al-Qaeda has set up in Libya with the instability, so that kind of sucks for Libya. Doesn't seem like it will be beneficial to the world. Also, it's important to note that Egypt has long been a key protector of Israel. The question remains, who will watch Israel's back while Egypt struggles to resuscitate their failed democracy? We all know that the last thing Israel needs is someone trying to attack it when their guard is down. In conclusion, we see a huge problem here, and that is this. Rebels in Egypt, in Tunisia, in Yemen, and Libya have had enough. They have had enough of us telling them what to do and what is right. They've had enough of us telling them what belongs in their government and what is out, how to trade with us, etc. They know what they want, and they want rights, and they will continue to fight, even if their interests conflict. For better or for worse, there's no going back. And we hate to be pessimistic, but we cannot see how this is beneficial to the world.
You referred to what I mentioned about a step in the right direction. What they're fighting for is a democracy, and the most successful democracies of the world happen to be in Europe and North America. And so if you were talking about the right direction in terms of what they want, moving toward a North American European democracy is a step in the right direction. Also, we're not saying that they should not have religion in their government if they choose to have it in their government. We are saying that they should not have an extremist religious party in their government. And yeah, so I'd just like to clarify that point.
Was there a question there, or was that just a statement?
It's a point of clarification.
Okay.
All right, this is also a point of clarification. You said that we said that religion has no place in the government.
No, I was just saying you guys were saying it's a step
No,
in
you
the
said
right
that. You said that religion has no place in the government. We never said that.
No.
Yeah, you did. And I wrote down exactly what you said. I don't think I misheard you. You said that. Okay.
direction. Like the sound waves may have gotten corrupted.
Oh, funny. Okay.
Can we show shoes? She was talking.
Religion should stay at home. We never said religion should have nothing to do with the government. But to an extent, religion should stay at home. Like, okay, she said that Christianity is part of British law. But there's many things about Christianity that are not put into the government itself. We're not saying that the Islamic government should completely leave the government. We're just saying that it should stay at home to some extent. Just like how in the Bible it says, okay, don't have sex without marriage. But I don't think that's a law in England, obviously. So right now, we're not saying that Islam should not have any part in the government. We're just saying that some of the parts should stay at home. We never said it has no part in the government.
Okay, I just want to point out the irony that you guys discussed that we need to stop stereotyping these people, but here you're saying what is wrong and right, and, well, not wrong and right, but that they should keep their religion at home. No. I'm not sure, I just
part
the
of
consistency
Western
is
idealism of fun with the Middle East.
Yeah, like, that's their culture.
Okay.
So.
And I also wanted to mention that they cannot have Islam and democracy, because as I mentioned in my speech, those two things are not compatible. Because Islam invites itself in every part of the social and political life. So basically, you cannot have them both.
I'm sorry, you're saying that Islam and democracy do not go together? They are.
Yes, and if you have paid any attention to my speech,
No, I'm not. I'm sorry. I had more to say. That is the point. They are asking for a secular government because they've seen that it has not worked in the past, and they've learned from the mistakes, and they're trying to get a democracy because they've seen that it's not worked in the past. They want secular government.
Oh, okay.
so is that why since 1990s Islamist parties are capturing the majority of the vote? Since 1990s, Islamist parties are capturing the majority of votes. So we really cannot see how those people want to secularize Islam.
I'm sorry. Are we debating about the past, or are we talking about the present?
Can I just
and the future
clarify
right
something?
now?
Earlier,
Okay, can we just...
okay, can I just say something? When Joanna was talking about that Islam and democracy aren't compatible, she was just literally referring to that in the Islam Bible, the Quran, it's written that you need to have a theocracy. That's all she was talking about. So that's like
Right.
bridging the line.
When you said the stereotype, sorry, how is putting Islamism at home a stereotype? And I never said. I said you can still have it in the government, but keep some at home. Just like the whole example I gave you. I don't understand whether you misheard me, but let me repeat myself. Like I said, you don't have to have Islam completely in the government, because as we can see, it has. Pardon?
That's not coherent.
You're talking and I'm talking. All right. Because yeah, you're not supposed to. You're not supposed to. Okay. Because as we see from the past, when the Islam is completely in the government, we see what happens. And we see how the country is poor. That's the whole point of the revolution, for them to build up from that.
Okay, can we calm down for a minute? Just 1 minute, 1 minute. It has to be, because we're giving speeches, it seems like. It has to be points of information, points of clarification. So simple points of information, points of clarification. Is it a point of clarification or? Go ahead, yes.
I just want to clarify that we cannot have some of the Islam in the government and some part of the Islam not in the government. Because Islam as a religion invites itself to every part of social life. So you cannot have some of part of Islam in the government and some not. And some not.
Okay, point of information or clarification? Okay, go ahead.
In Italy, it's an example. I know the debate is not about it. In Italy, there is much of religion going on in the political system, and you say that some of it we have to leave it at home and some of it we have to put in the government. You can't do that. You need to divide religion by politics, okay? Because politicians, for example, in Italy, are influenced by religion. Gay people can't marry because politicians are influenced by religion. You can't put a little bit of religion in a political system. You can't do that. That's not coherent.
Do you know that? Okay.
I'm sorry, we're not saying that they are,
Well, that looks like.
that they can have a little bit at home and a little bit like in.
Well, that's what she said.
That's exactly what you said.
So you need to clarify that.
Right, can we draw a line? Draw a line, calm down. Yes. Any other points?
We're saying that they have a right to their beliefs, but they should not be using these extremist beliefs in their government. So a politician can still be Islamic, but they should not force everyone